I'm also moved by it.
Yes. Yes, tell me about that. What moves you?
You talking to me?
So, what's normal about that? In fact, what's so normal about any of us nuts sitting at this table? Hi, and welcome back to the Pretentious Film Bros podcast, where it is our mission to break down the stereotypes and build connections through film. Now, if you've been following our podcast for the past 5 weeks or so, you know that we are coming up on the end of what has been our first ever Pretentious Film Bros marathon, focusing on the directorial works of John Ford. Now, throughout this marathon, we wanted to pick a variety of films, not only some of Ford's big tentpole films, such as The Searchers and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, but we wanted to also take a look at maybe some of his more underknown or underseen films. Films like Stagecoach or Mongambo, or even My Darling Clementine. Well, now we've reached the end of our marathon. And in a grand way of perfect timing or planning, we have also reached the end of John Ford's career. The film that we're going to discuss with you today was the final film that the legendary filmmaker would end up making throughout his entire life. That film, of course, is 1965's Seven Women. Now, Seven Women is different from a typical Ford film in the sense of how Mongambo is different from a film, say, like Stagecoach. But it also feels very similar to the works of John Ford in the ways that The Searchers feel similar to The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance or other films of that nature. You see, Seven Women takes place at a Christian ministry post in China, set, I believe, in the 1930s, if I'm getting my date correct.
That is correct.
So we're set deep in the heart of China with this Christian ministry post from where missionary women from the U.S. are here to serve these people and to reach them with the gospel. But in typical John Ford fashion, there's always another layer. There is a villainous bandit running around the parts of China, terrorizing small towns and also terrorizing other ministry outposts. So in as much as it feels like a typical ministry to people in a foreign land film, it also feels very much, I think, Brady, like a Chinese Western, where you've got this small band of people, this small town, if you would, with this missionary post, who are trying to defend themselves or survive with the threat of this leader who is just wrecking these small villages and other outposts throughout China. So Seven Women is a story about, as you might guess, seven women. And it doesn't begin with seven women at this monastery, or not a monastery, it's a Christian mission. It doesn't begin with seven women here, but there's about four. You've got a woman who runs the monastery, Mrs. Andrews. With her, she's got her faithful secretary, I believe is how she refers to her. There is another woman there with her husband who is nearing the end of a pregnancy. And then there's a young woman there, probably around her 20s, named Emma. And these women are both anxious and excited because finally, after all this time, after months and months of asking, a doctor is coming to take place at their mission, to set up camp, to live, to serve the people, and also to serve them and the staff there, especially having one woman of their staff who is pregnant. So the doctor doesn't show up when they're supposed to. In fact, it's several days later when the doctor shows up, and something very strange happens. Where they were expecting a male doctor, they actually get a woman doctor, Dr. Cartwright, played by Anne Bancroft, who you may know from films such as The Graduate, which will come out a couple years later. Immediately, Dr. Cartwright brings all kinds of controversy, all kinds of trouble. Because not only is she a woman doctor at a time where It was virtually unheard of. But she is a woman doctor who drinks, a woman doctor who smokes, a woman doctor who swears, and perhaps her most egregious sin of all, coming to the Christian mission, she is a woman doctor who does not have the same faith that these women share at the mission. In fact, you could almost say that this woman puts her faith not in God, not in the Christian God, but in medicine, in healing, in the practical science of what she has taken an oath to do. So immediately controversy stirs up, especially between Andrews and Cartwright, who just immediately clash. Andrews being this very strict, very by the book, very controlled, kind of that typical, maybe what you think of when you think of a Christian in a Hollywood production. That is Mrs. Andrews. So she clashes immediately with Mrs. Cartwright, but other people, such as the young Emma, are fascinated by Dr. Cartwright, which only serves to make Miss Andrews even angrier. And just when you think things couldn't get crazier for these two women, this mission, a British mission, comes knocking on their door one night, running refugees, because they have just been destroyed at their mission by this warlord, by this bandit who has been going around burning cities and missions. And if that wasn't enough, that now not only is this mission have these U.S. missionaries and all of the people they were there serving and caring for, now they have these 3 women from the U.K. mission and all of the people they were caring for. And in the middle of all that, a pandemic breaks out. Cholera takes over the camp. Everything's got to be burned. Everything's got to be cleaned. People are just dying tragically in numbers. And finally, that comes back under control. And finally, maybe things are starting to level out. And finally, Mrs. Andrews seems like maybe she's going to start having some more respect and some more kindness towards Dr. Cartwright. And then we see a fire in the distance. The bandits are coming. They are on their way towards the Christian mission, who these American women are so confident they're going to be safe. The Chinese army is there nearby to protect them. They're Americans. They're not going to be attacked. Well, I think you can probably guess how the rest of the story plays out. And 7 Women quickly turns into a story of how are these 7 women going to survive? And it really turns to focus in on how does Dr. Cartwright step up and do her oath as a doctor to preserve and protect human life, to protect these 7 women, and to make sure that they can make it home. So Brady, this was my last pick of the 3 John Ford films. What did you think about 7 Women? I know you fell for My Darling Clementine. I know you and I both were completely turned off by Mongambo. So I really needed a win here. And I'm hoping that this was at least a positive response to you in general from this film. So what did you think about 7 Women?
I will give you credit where credit is due. You have picked probably the more eclectic of the bunch. As far as when it came to the 3 John Ford films you were going to have for our marathon. And I will say, as far as I'm concerned, you're 2 for 3. Perfect. Seven Women was a fantastic film. I had a great time getting to see, as we'll discuss later, this is very thematically dense. It seems very much not just a finale for Ford's career in the sense that it's just a closing film. It feels very final. but it also is sort of discussing and doing things very antithetical to what Ford has built his career on. For example, every movie Ford has really done at this point has been more about having male heroes, having that, or male anti-heroes if you want, like the Searchers. But there is this interesting element where all of the men in this film, including the husband, Mr. Pether, who has this line of dialogue in which he admits he wasn't really considering like his wife whenever he brought her to this mission. And then the only people on Cowboys are these warlords who have come to, steal and pillage and take what they want. Or they're servants of the women, right? All of these men have been completely put into a different place. And the title Seven Women is really aptly titled. And so when you're watching it, you have this feeling that John Ford is just like, he's just so comfortable in the director's chair. He's so comfortable. He is doing everything perfectly. He's not trying to go too big. He's not trying to do anything too grand. In fact, what's interesting is we don't really see a lot of what happens outside of this mission. Anytime they walk out the door, there is a glimpse of what's maybe out there, but it feels very separate from where they're at. This feels like such an isolated place, very similar to how Shinbone felt in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Very isolated, very closed off. In fact, even when they see the smoke and the fire and Mr. Pether and Dr. Cartwright go out to check it out, when they look off in the distance, we're seeing their perspective. Or we're seeing from the opposite perspective. We're seeing their faces as they're looking out. It's still keeping us very closed to their place. There is a moment where we see the fire off in the distance, but the majority of that scene is shot watching how they react to what's going on outside of their little place. So you see Ford kind of coming into his closing, where you've watched other films of his that are just big, grand, epic, just battles and chases and gunfights and all of these things to come to this very small mission about women at a Christian monastery. And one man, right, Mr. Pether, who I feel like is still, again, he's nothing. He's a pretty inconsiderate small man, which also, if you're not sure, we are going to be spoiling this film as we have every other film before. And so here's your warning. If you have not watched this, stop now, go watch Seven Women. It's worth your time. But Mr. Pether, the one man who's there, he dies. And it's in a very quick, off-screen way. There is no grand death for Mr. Pether. They just come back and tell you what's happened. So John Ford seems to be doing something very interesting, very feminist here in this film. And he does it really, really well. And I will say one of the things that is interesting is Dr. Cartwright. The fact that her name is even D.R. Cartwright. Like, it's Dr. D.R. Cartwright as far as her credits are concerned. As though this is just the role she was born to play. This is who she's supposed to be. She is a doctor from birth. She's masculine in a lot of different ways. The way she drinks, the way she swears, the way she smokes. It's very, very masculine. It's not very feminine or becoming of a female at all. Her hair is worn short, right? There's so many features about her that seem to hint at masculinity, but it's also Anne Bancroft. So she's beautiful. So there's this tactic that Ford is doing where he is playing with his audience, and he plays with it perfectly. He attacks the themes that he wants to attack, and he does it perfectly. I don't want to say or give the impression that I believe this is a perfect film. We'll discuss what I believe are maybe some flaws within the film. But I had an overall great time and experience with Seven Women. My final rating is 4 stars for this film. I think it is an awesome, encouraging time, and one that really pushes its camera in on maybe John Ford's main audience, right? These white Americans outside of their comfort zone who are not respectful of women, who are very much thinking this is going to be a cowboy western, especially since that's what he's done his entire career, even to where you hear that on set, from what we've heard, this is the most tolerable John Ford's ever been on set. Everything about this film is coming to a close.
Mm-hmm.
And it concludes with the final line, "So long, you bastard," as though John Ford is waving goodbye to himself. So, Nolan, what were your thoughts on this film? Did you appreciate it as much as I appreciated it, more or less? And let's just hear how you kind of went through this experience of watching Seven.
Yeah. So I am once again getting to come to this conversation very fresh after just watching this film. And I would say, like you, I had an overall positive experience with it. I would also say that I have had an overall positive experience with most of the films that we've watched throughout this marathon, of course, save for the one very, very big misfire. But yeah, I enjoyed this journey. I enjoyed this something different from Ford in the sense that it does feel familiar with those kind of Western tropes mixed into the story of the bandits and the outlaws and the small town surviving, the isolated community just running on its own away from everyone else. It's also different in the sense that it's not the cowboys that are the heroes. In fact, it's a doctor. And even more than that, it is a female doctor who is the ultimate hero of this film. And really, for most of the film, the only tolerable woman among the seven. And as you walk through the film, I mean, there's maybe two, I think. You've got the doctor, Dr. Cartwright, and then you've got Emma, who I believe is also... But the rest of the women are either nasty or they're kind of closed-minded and fixed in their ways. Or you've got the wife, Mrs. Tether. Is that how you're pronouncing her name?
Heather. I believe it's Heather with a P.
Heather with a P. And Mrs. Pether, who I get the strain and the tension she was in, but my goodness, the woman she was a lot. Let's just put it like that. She was a lot of a character in heightened emotions and a heightened sense. I mean, she was about to have a baby in this craziness, but she was a lot when she was on screen. But thankfully, this film really is anchored by Dr. Cartwright.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that she comes in as the outsider and really binds these women together, as again you do in many traditional westerns. It's the outsider who comes in and unites the town and forms this bond and butts heads with the local authority, whether that would be Doc Holliday or whether that would be Tom. You always find that common theme. So it's really cool to see those common themes and those common ideas of what John Ford has done throughout his entire career show up in a film that takes place in 1930s China.
Mm-hmm.
But then also the ways that it is different. And it does feel final. But at the same time, it really kind of feels new. I mean, it's one of those films that you would expect to see in the middle of a director's career when they're starting to pivot into something new. Because like you said, it's gone from the grand scale, and even did a little bit of digging and a little bit of looking up about the film. It's going away from the grand scale on location shooting
Mm-hmm.
to this very small scale on a studio shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be why we don't see much of what happens outside the missionary, because this film was shot on a film studio where most of John Ford's previous films were always shot out on location. He was just that kind of director. But it seems that with Seven Women, he's pivoting his career. He's leaving the grand scale for something intimate. He's leaving the on-location extravagance to something that's built within the studio and confined, and really claustrophobic, especially when that second mission group comes from the UK mission.
Yes.
And it's something that's much more introspective, even too. I mean, Seven Women is a film that deals squarely with faith. It deals with particularly the Christian faith. And this idea that they say it throughout the film several times in different forms or fashions, if God wills it. It's a regular part of their prayer at the dinner scenes. It's what Dr. Miss Andrews says when she's sitting out on the stump with Dr. Cartwright, right when Emma's getting sick. She says, if God wills it. And then, of course, you've got Dr. Cartwright, who's kind of butting up against that. And she's like, I've been in some of the worst hospitals. I've been in places that are hell on earth. And I've never seen God show up there to save those people from all of the things that just ailed them. So it's not only this shrinkage from grand to small, from extravagant to intimate, from loud to soft, but it's this shift from the shoot 'em up to this introspective look at faith, and where faith and medicine, modern advances in science, and traditional beliefs and faith in God to care for you, and how those things come and how they clash, and how maybe they could even, at the end of the day, complement one another. It's a very different Ford film. And for as final as it feels, and it does feel final, it also feels like, man, this was almost the beginning of something else. It was right when Ford came at the end of his career. It looked like he was going to start something else, but then it just stopped. And for my vote, it stopped beautifully. It stopped almost as if Ford knew this was his final film, with the final words that any of his characters would ever say. So long, you bastard. So long, Hollywood. I've had enough. I have done what I came here to do. So long, Director Ford. It's time for you to retire. It's time for you to go home and enjoy a simpler life. So long, critics. No more do you get to look at my work and judge it and tell me where I'm right or where I'm wrong. So much of all of that is tied up in that final line. So long, you bastard. And I think what seemed like a pivot in a career also is a brilliant end cap to a career, and a film that probably is very largely underseen, especially if you're a traditional John Ford fan, where you like the Westerns and you like the cowboys and you like the shoot 'em ups. You may never have heard of Seven Women. And that, I'd never heard of Seven Women. Brady, I know you had never heard of Seven Women. And that's why I wanted to include this film in our marathon, not even aware that this was his final film. So absolutely, this is a film that is worth your time. It's one that's different. It's one that's great for a quiet afternoon. When you're ready to sit down, you're ready to wrestle with the ideas and the themes that we're going to bring up here as well in a couple of minutes. But these things that John Ford has presented you with, to really think about faith and modernity and sacrifice, and what makes a person a good person and what makes a person an evil person. And when you're ready to really sit with all of those issues and just let them kind of tossle around in your mind, this is the perfect John Ford film for that.
Well, and what would you say your rating is? I know it's fresh, but if you had to put a star rating on it as of the moment, where are you leaning towards?
Right off the bat, this is a strong 3-star for me.
Okay. Strong 3-star. Okay.
A strong 3.
Okay.
Or might even be in the upper half of the films that we've journeyed throughout this marathon. You'll have to wait and see that. I'm still waiting to see that myself.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I would say that I agree with a lot of what you stated, and I think it's really interesting the way John Ford has kind of ended his career with what was such a probably unforeseen pivot. It's not that he's never cared about his women characters. In fact, a lot of times the female characters are a lot of what hinges on the male character's actions, right? If you think about the searchers, the niece is the one that goes missing, that prompts the searchers in the first place. My Darling Clementine is literally titled My Darling Clementine.
Yeah.
And although it seems to be more of a discussion between Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, you still have strong characters like Chihuahua and Clementine, who are there as this soul to the movie, something that brings that brevity to those kinds of movies. When you look at Stagecoach, the most tragic character there is Dallas, right? When you look at who she is and where she comes from and the way she's seen by the other women, she's looked down upon so much. When you look at movies like Mogambo, there are two leads played by two women who are extremely important to Hollywood history in Grace Kelly and Ava Gardner, right? The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, even when you look at that, it's still this beautiful love triangle in which Vera Miles has to choose between Tom Donovan or Ransom Stoddard. So there's still this been this permeating of the importance of the female throughout John Ford's career, but it is culminated in Seven Women.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that you appreciated it, at least as close to about what I appreciated. And so I thought now what we might be able to do, as we've talked about your ratings, my ratings, maybe just talk about what did we expect, and also just sort of our journey with this film, how we felt from first, second to third act. And so I think one thing that's important that I want to hit on before we get too deep off in the weeds, we talked about how claustrophobic this Christian mission is. I think that that plays into the themes of Christian exclusivity, religious exclusivity. And that's really important, even when those other women come to I believe, I cannot remember her name, but the head lady, she's phenomenal. Yeah, Miss Andrews, she is phenomenal in this film. She is easily one of my favorite characters in the film because she's so, she reminds me of some past Christian trauma, of some staunch I'll say staunch Baptists as opposed to staunch Christians. Because even when these other people are brought into this mission after their village has been burnt down, she subtly, passive-aggressively acknowledges how short a time they're really going to be spending there.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to keep them. They're not there for them to stay. Even when they offer to help, she tells them, no, that's okay. Like they're used to a certain kind of faith here, and we don't want the children to get confused. Which is really funny because earlier in the movie, it's acknowledged that they probably have no idea what they're really talking about most of the time anyway.
By Mrs. Andrews herself.
Yes, which is just really, it's so funny. I don't know if she grew up in that world or John Ford knew people in that world, but they hit the nail on the head with that one. There were a lot of times as a Christian, I'm sure for the same for you, where I was getting a little PTSD. I was like, ooh, that is a little too close to home.
She was hard to watch.
She was.
I mean, she really was. And I kept waiting for her to change and for her to understand. And there was this brief moment that I thought she did.
By the tree?
I thought it was changing by the tree. And I was like, she's shifting. She's coming around. And then, nope. Now the pandemic's over and she's back to herself as usual. And she stayed that way the entire time, to the point where by the end of the film, her companions and her most loyal companion couldn't stand her anymore. And
so 100%. And so before I dive too deep off to the side into Christian PTSD and all of that, I think it's important to think about the fact that this is a group of characters very similar to Stagecoach. Mm-hmm. Stagecoach being the film, it wasn't necessarily his first film, I believe, but it's the one that sort of brought him in to the mainstream and put him on the scene, right?
Yeah.
So you see Stagecoach, this very claustrophobic journey of all of these different types of characters traveling to this place that they don't know where they're going, that they don't know if they're even going to be safe by the time they get there, right?
Right.
because they know they're going to have to go through all of these different lands, and tribes are at every turn, and there's a fear in them, right? When in this one, the journey doesn't seem to be an end to the journey. It just seems that they're here and they're stuck, but they're constantly in each other's places. They're constantly in each other's quarters. So you have the staunch Baptist, you have the loyal follower, you have the very tone deaf, culture deaf, pregnant woman who she makes this comment early on in the film, giving you all you need to know about her when she says, "Surely the chef knows we are hungry."
Mm-hmm.
They're like, do we always have to say we? Like, do we have to acknowledge that there's a difference between us and the people we're ministering to?
Yeah.
And even
Well,
though,
and I think too, I interpreted that part a little differently.
okay,
As we are hungry, as in her and her baby. And I think
okay.
that's what made especially Mrs. Andrews so angry. Because
That's
it was that
interesting.
acknowledging of, I'm here with a baby under this holy place where these unholy acts should not be taking, that have given me an unholy pregnancy, which I thought was
Interesting.
completely absurd. But that was the way I read it. Now, it could be read either way, but I think to me, that's why Mrs. Andrews and the other women got so offended. Or at least
See, I
Mrs.
believe
Andrews' character, for sure, resulting with what happens later in the film, is why I would think that with her. The others, it may have been because of the people they were serving, and she was kind of othering herself from those people. But I'll let you go ahead and go on.
no, I believe it definitely. I did not interpret it that way at all, and I see where you're coming from for sure. I think the reason I thought about that is because having gone on multiple trips
Mm-hmm.
to other countries, I've experienced that with other people in our group, and where
Yeah.
they, not even meaning it this way, but there is a definite tone deafness to where they're at. And when she says weird, she's like sitting and she's fanning herself, and she's very just like over. Surely he knows we're hungry, and
Mm-hmm.
I assumed that she meant white people because of the way she was coming across.
Right.
But it's interesting that you took that other interpretation. I definitely do think that that could 100% be a part of it, especially considering the way the teacher responds later. But I interpreted it as her othering herself from the group of people that they're serving. So,
Which, given her character, is also highly probable.
yeah, I think that it probably could have been both, and however you interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
Because people who haven't gone on mission, maybe like on mission trips, they might not interpret it that way.
Yeah.
Because they might not know what that's like to be with someone like her. But I feel like you could definitely see it either way. So very good point. I did not even consider that side. And so, yes, I believe this is sort of a lot of times a callback to Stagecoach. This claustrophobic, the same way he kind of does in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, just not as on the nose.
Right.
It also reminds me, of course, of Mogambo and the fact that they're in a different country. They're in a different nation. They're doing something inherently American in a different culture, right? In fact, you see these people all trying their very best to really do it for themselves, which is why Dr. Cartwright is such a different character. Because early on, the man who's supposed to be teaching math, Mr. Pether, is going on in some crazy theological delirium. And the teacher, Miss Andrews, comes in and she's like, you do realize they have no idea what you're talking about anyway. You're supposed to be teaching math. Mm-hmm. This isn't, you're not a clergyman. Which I also thought was a pretty funny callback to the man who never claimed to be a clergyman, but was constantly called one anyway. There was sort of that mirroring of, even though this guy was supposed to be a clergyman, wanted to be one, he was supposed to be teaching math. So it just, and you see later on in his selfishness with his wife who's pregnant, like he never considered his wife. He didn't consider the situation of what's going on in this world. Yeah. And so it just, you start to see, I felt like what I really enjoyed the most about this film is how much it was able to take each character and sort of like, you knew who they were from the second they stepped on screen. Yeah. From the first sentence they said, you knew exactly who that character was. And I think that that's just tremendous character work. I think one of the flaws of that comes with it is they sort of represent more of caricatures more than characters themselves. They're not always, aside from Dr. Cartwright, I think Dr. Cartwright is 100% a character all on her own.
Yeah.
But Miss Andrews, like, even the way I remember them, right? The way I remember them is how did they act? You have the young, unassuming Emma, right? Yeah. Who is trying to be kind. She's like, surely she's a good person. She's here to help the sick. Like, we can't look at her and just assume she's bad because she doesn't share our ideals. So she's trying to be understanding. Yep. And you see the way Dr. Cartwright even responds to her is more positive because she sees that she respects her a little bit more. She sees that she's at least attempting to care for her. You have the loyal servant who does nothing but, follow around Miss Andrews and, sniff her butt the entire time. There's this, like, anything she does is perfect, and she just she's constantly there and does nothing. She's such a nobody. She's such a nothing character. But that's the way she's been positioned by this other woman, right? Even Dr. Cartwright calls Miss Andrews a small-time dictator. Like, you are just here to control people.
Yep.
You're not
your country and you're the boss.
Nobody there is truly doing it for the right reasons, aside from Dr. Cartwright. Right? Aside from Dr. Cartwright, she's there. Possibly Emma. You could argue.
I'm going to defend Emma.
I don't.
Part of that is because of her youngness and her naivety. She doesn't really know.
I agree.
But also, she was raised in the. Mrs. Andrews tells us that she came from a family of brothers and a father who are all in the ministry. So she may be there because it's what's expected of her with her family and everything. But I would give Emma the benefit of the doubt.
I agree. And you even have that conversation between her and Miss Andrews where they have that. She acknowledges to her, like, you've been very sheltered.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to beware Dr. Cartwright. And I'm going to be calling and we're going to get a replacement. It's like, oh my gosh, I cannot stand her the entire time. She was fantastic. My gosh. I've never seen someone play she's not a villain, but she's close enough. And you even see the way she does. I do believe she doesn't shift entirely, but I do believe there are small, like, picks at her character that start to crack. Yeah.
There's a line where she tries. It looks like she's going to change, but then she walls that back up.
Yep. And I think that's where the film thrives. I think that it thrives very early on. For the first, I would say 45 minutes to an hour. This is a 5-star film. I'm like, dang it, he's done it again. And I am entertained. I'm intrigued. I'm captivated. Every conversation is interesting. Everything is just very, very compelling. And I'm thinking Ford is just, I get it. And I still do. I still believe 100% that John Ford's one of the greatest American directors to ever direct. Right. And one could argue if you were going to put him on a Rushmore, he deserves it. But then the third act happens. And we have the invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me why we get to the invasion of all of these people coming in. People have died now.
Yep.
People are being captured.
Yep.
And it slows down like we've hit the brakes on a freight train.
Yeah.
It comes to a screeching halt. The momentum's completely taken away. The excitement has completely been drawn out. And there's no more intrigue. There's no more, it's like, for me at least, maybe for others it's different. But I get to that final 30 minutes and I'm kind of bored. I'm actually really bored. I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's something that's coming that I'm not understanding. And then it salvages itself in the last 10 seconds, of course. Yeah. That's a tremendous scene. It's a tremendous moment. It capitalizes on all the themes he's really set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the pacing really slows down when that group gets there. It also becomes somewhat slapstick, like goofy and funny with these people who have been doing unspeakable horrors to other villages. I'm like, I'm not sure what's actually going on. Am I supposed to not hate these guys? Am I supposed to actually just be okay with how they're acting? Or like maybe it's not okay, but like it's not really that evil. The way in which they're all painted, I don't know. I just feel like Ford definitely lost what he was maybe trying to do. And it was much more interesting when it was a character study than when it became the invasion movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about that, but that's definitely my takeaway from how I felt that journey of the movie. So intriguing, all the characters, everything's interesting, the dialogue is captivating, the scenes are compelling, people are just they're so intriguing to watch. I want to sit with them the entire time. Dr. Cartwright is unbelievable, possibly one of the best Ford characters to ever be put to screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, we hit a wall, and I could not care less. And maybe that's a me thing. Maybe that's my problem. Maybe it's the way it felt like we sat with the invaders for way too long.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have the invaders come in the last 10 minutes, that would have been exciting, because then you're not sitting with them for 30 minutes wondering what's going to happen. And now that they've had a true threat, because they've already had a threat to their village, right? They've already had cholera come. So it's already not that they were able to withstand that and they were able to get through that. But now we have these new invaders, and it's like, okay, now it's people, and we're with them for a long time until it finally culminates. So I don't know how you felt about that, if you had the same impression that I did. But that's kind of how I felt when it came to the third act.
Yeah. That's definitely where it dropped for me too. And that's where, for me, this film, I guess from you, it dropped from a 5 to a 4. For me, it dropped from a 4 to a 3 when we had those invaders come in, because I was thinking early on in this film, I was like, I'm watching a Bergman film. This is fantastic. I've got this great character study. It's dealing with faith. It's dealing with modernity. It's dealing with medicine. It's dealing with how faith bleeds into this modern, I guess if you would call the 1930s modern, this modern world and the lives of these people. What an abuse of faith looks like versus a good tendering of faith versus the faithful atheist. I think you could probably say about Dr. Cartwright, as contradictory as those two terms seem together. And yeah, it's cholera. It is a pandemic in this small village. And it's here and gone in 5 minutes of screen time, if that. And that to me was where I was like, oh, this is where it's going to get good. This is where Miss Andrews is going to start to kind of shift and change, because they had that great moment right at the start where Dr. Cartwright is telling everyone what to do and barking orders and saying, go do this, go do that, go do that. And Miss Andrews kind of gets up in her face like, why are you telling my people what to do? And the second she says there's cholera, her face just drops. And she's like, okay, you got it, Doc. We're going to do what you say. It instantly humbles Miss Andrews. I wrote in my notes, I said, few things to humble the proud so quickly as a pandemic. Of course, myself anyways, thinking of COVID-19 coming and just shutting down our world. And changing everything that we thought we knew was what I thought of when she said cholera had broken out in the way that they were burning the clothes and isolating the people and getting the shots and all that kind of stuff. And then it was over. And it was like, that felt like that should be the big part of the film, the big challenge of the film, especially when Emma got sick. Because now you have this one person that Miss Andrews really seems to care about. Whether her intentions are good or bad in the way she goes about it, or she goes about it well or she goes about it not well. I wrote in my notes also that Mrs. Andrews really specializes in guilt trips, thinking about that scene that she has with Emma, where she's telling her how naive she is and how she doesn't know how the world works and how Dr. Cartwright is evil and all of those kinds of things. She's like, oh, I poured everything into you. You're my prodigy. And this is how you repay me, by losing your faith, which is absolutely absurd, by the way. But she immediately goes to, you've lost your faith. And it was like, I haven't lost my faith. that my
Yeah.
faith has nothing to do with this. It's my faith that, and she doesn't say all this. This is me kind of ad-libbing in the moment, but it's almost feels like she's like, my faith is what's giving me grace for Mrs. Cartwright. It's what makes me think Dr. Cartwright is here to help and that we should give her a chance. But anyways, and then Emma gets sick, and I'm like, ooh, that's going to bring some tension. And then Mrs. Andrews has a beautiful moment out on the log, which maybe we can talk about later, where I'll just go into it now. She says, I've always searched for something that isn't there, and God isn't enough. Heaven help me, he's not enough, or God help me, he's not enough. And that, to me, I was like, that's when I realized I'm watching a Bergman film. That's right out of something that an Ingmar Bergman character would say. But
it's something the priest from Winter Light has actually said.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the best example of who she's becoming. I'm like, okay, great. Mrs. Andrews is becoming tolerable. She's becoming relatable. She's somebody that we can have some compassion for. But then the cholera outbreak's over. She's back to her old tricks. Emma's suddenly healthy again, which we knew she would be. And then everything's great. And then it has to be the invasion. It's like, oh no, we've still got 30 minutes of screen time. We have to have something else happen. Yep. It's in a lot of ways how it feels. And then we spend that long time in the invasion. And Ford has stepped out of what he was setting up to be a really rich character study. And now it's foreigners are bad, tribes are bad, and we've got to defeat they call them like heathens and mongrels and beast. Beast is a really popular word that Mrs. Andrews and a couple of the other more old and highfalutin, proud religious women use when referring to the Chinese bandits. And then it becomes that. And it's like, oh, man. And it's not in a way where Stagecoach was this beautiful character study. And then, but you've got the fight with the Apaches. And the fight with the Apaches just heightened the character study and heightened the impressiveness of the story and made it better. It's like when these Chinese bandits came in, the story dropped off. Like you said, in all ways, it hit a wall. And it wasn't that there wasn't more conflict. I mean, she had to have her baby. The baby had not been born yet. So that could have brought so much conflict. It was already bringing tension and conflict in she can't have this baby here. She's not going to be able to survive. This is not a proper place for a post-menopause woman to be having a baby. And that is a part of the conflict of the third act. That is one of the things that leads Mrs. Andrews to make some of the choices, or not Mrs. Andrews, Dr. Cartwright to make some of the choices that she makes. Again, as part of her oath and showing her character of, I'm going to protect people and life at all costs, even if it comes at a great cost to me. And it did on multiple occasions. It's implied that it came at a great cost to her and to her own individuality and to her own safety in a lot of ways. And then at the end of the film, it comes at the cost of her life. But yeah, it hits that third act, and it shifts from this in-depth, intimate character study to I'm really not sure what, to be honest, because you've got the scene where the bandits are beating each other up and they're fighting and going at it, and they're having like a sports show basically. And then it just doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of the film. Like, you knew it was coming to that. The opening title cards are these bandits riding across the screen, riding to raid and destroy another village. But I wish it hadn't been that. And I know he's taken this script that's adapted off of a short story. So to not have that would be, not as well write your own script at that point kind of deal. You're not making an adaptation. But I just wish that the original source had just focused on these 7 women and on their relationships and on this tension between Andrews and Cartwright. because there was enough there that could have carried a very strong film, and they could have explored all of these ideas, maybe even deeper. Maybe even some of the ideas that it seemed like they were hinting at, they could have gone deeper into. And I'll save a little bit of that discussion for when we talk about some of these themes and big ideas a little more. They talk about, but yeah, I'm with you. The first hour of the film was phenomenal. It
really
was a very high, very strong 4-star film.
Yep.
And then that moment that it shifted, it became less interesting.
Yep.
And not even less interesting as a character study, maybe, but less interesting even as a John Ford film.
Yep.
Because, like you said, I mean, we've seen those big battles with the others done so much better in other films in this marathon. And this one it just didn't have that. And I think because it did stay so long and tried to make us feel like, are we supposed to be with these people and care for them? And they didn't feel like just this threatening outside force. It felt like we were supposed to care, but then they're evil monsters and they're massacring these people. I mean, they even kill everybody in this village except for these 7 American women. So it just got muddled the second they showed the purpose of this film, and what I wish the purpose of this film would have been, got lost in the sauce.
No, I agree 100%. I think that coming to the end of this film, you've been led to believe that this is going to be so different than even The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, where that movie thrived so much. It's not in its big action-packed scenes or set pieces. It's not in its, like, bravado match between Tom and Ransom. There is that, but that's not entirely what it's rooted in. It's rooted in a philosophy, which it seemed he was doing this again in 7 Women.
Yeah.
The thing is that The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance never forgets what it's there for. And it's able to include those other scenes, include those other moments, and it still be incredibly impactful.
And here, have a perfect film.
And thus you have a 5-star perfect film. But 7 Women, the first hour is so tremendously well done that the lows are so low when you look at them by comparison, right? It's a shame that this is what it delved into, what it came to, because you're right. It kind of feels tacked on. This movie is an hour and a half long, an hour and 29 minutes. It's not a long movie, right? No. And we've had, just like you said, great Bergman-esque dialogue, thoughts, themes, thematic messages, deliveries, just character studies. It's been so compelling from a dialogue standpoint, from a just a isolated small town standpoint. That doesn't make any sense why we've decided we're just going to throw these people in here at the end and they're kind of goofy. And then now, of course, the final moment makes sense for Dr. Cartwright, but I also feel like that could have been solved in another way.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't have to have her kill herself in order for it to really drive home the point of what they're trying to add to it. So it's interesting. It's unfortunate. Maybe my rating is shifting a little bit as we continue to discuss. But the first hour of this movie is just truly something special. And I wish it kind of ended after the first hour.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like now would be a good time as any to kind of just finish up and discuss some of the themes that we really felt were prevalent and prominent within this film. And then finish our episode with a ranking of our marathon, top 3 characters, and send everyone on their way, telling people that they can just start going to watch John Ford films. So I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel ready to discuss some things.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Let's do it. Where do we want to start first?
Well, I think obviously I think the best way to start is to sort of discuss how everything seems to be a duality. Like everything seems to be a complete duality, right?
Okay.
You're right. Dr. Cartwright is a doctor who smokes. And she drinks and she swears and she seems to have no regard for her own health, but is willing to sacrifice, clearly, her own life for others to make sure that they feel well. And when she sees sickness in the area, she doesn't wait. She jumps for it. And she says, okay, this is how we're going to solve this problem. You need to get this person over here. You're right. She starts barking out orders. She makes it clear. She's going here and there, and she's doing it all with a sort of second nature. But whenever she's trying to celebrate with these other women, there's a sort of like, we don't want to celebrate with you. There's a standoffishness, right? Christians who are supposed to be welcoming live in a very enclosed community and are unwilling to welcome others into their own group.
Well, they almost seem like they don't even want to celebrate. Like they've just got through this massive thing. Again, the only thing that I can equate it to in our lives is coming out of COVID and thinking that, oh no, we're not going to celebrate that we just survived 3 years of extreme death and extreme isolation. We're not going to do it. We're just going to sit here normal, poised, proper, the way that we always were. And it reminds me of the line in a Billy Joel song, I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. That's what Dr. Cartwright, she's wanting to laugh, but these saints are all just wanting to continue to kind of cry and sit in their somberness, and everything has to be so serious all the time.
Yes.
Whereas again, you could argue, okay, well, Cartwright doesn't necessarily do it in the best way. She goes off and she gets drunk and she's spewing just whatever comes to her mind. Not the best way to celebrate, but she's trying to liven the mood, to rejoice, I guess, in a sense, from all the things they just survived, everything they just came through.
Yep. And it's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
It should be a celebration. When you triumph over death, it's very interesting because you have these women who are Christians or claim to be, and the Christian faith is built on this idea that you are triumphant over death because you have eternity in Christ. You have eternal salvation in God.
Yep.
And here they are after they've been saved because of a woman doctor, which is also just interesting, showing you the sexism not only coming from men, but women too at this time.
Yeah. There's no men to be sexist in this film.
And sexism runs rampant, right? And so it could be understood that when you are so deeply legalistic, as this group of women happen to be, at least Miss Andrews is,
right?
There is this idea of like, oh, well, that comes from that type of staunch liberalism or staunch conservatism in the faith, in religion. So
yeah,
it comes from that. So that idea that how they're acting is because it's been twisted. It's no longer about God. It's about people, right? It's about, there needs to be a sort of tradition more than there needs to be an actual faith.
Yeah.
And you learn that about Miss Andrews because she's not even a Christian. You learn that later on. She's doing this for herself. It's all about self. Every single one of them is about self, save for maybe Emma. Even Dr. Cartwright, even though she's doing good things, there's still a selfishness in her until the very end.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and she tells us too that she's running from something in the States, which we never get to find out what exactly. We can make assumptions based on this, that, or the other that happens in the film. But yeah, no, she's there. She's running from something, not to something.
Yep. And I think that this idea of, there's also, it kind of is in there. It's not as strong or as prominent, but there is this idea like, whenever Miss Andrews makes a comment that they're not going to be attacked, it's within the next couple scenes that they're attacked.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's this belief that they're not going to be sick. It's within the next couple of scenes that they're all suffering from a pandemic. Yeah. Right? And without the doctor there to save them from both, they would have been screwed.
Yep.
They would have been, because there was this blind understanding of like, oh, there's no evil in the world that can hurt us because we believe in God. It's like,
Well, and
that's
even
not
more than that, because we're Americans. I
right.
mean,
Yes.
that's what they say in the opening minutes of the film. They're like, "We're an American mission. They won't hurt us. They can't come in here."
Yep.
Which is a whole nother
Which
theme
I
of
thought
stuff
was
all
so
in the film.
funny, because I was watching that and I was like, why not? Why can't they? Like, why are you so sure in your patriotism that you can't be hurt?
Mm-hmm.
And there is that immediate othering, right? There's the cultural tone deafness theme that really permeates throughout this, right? That there is, it's interesting because it kind of reminded me at times of the film Silence, right? Where they have these they're persecuting Americans, persecuting Christians,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have this understanding like they're evil the entire time. They're evil, they're evil, they're evil. And then you learn it's just they're doing it to protect themselves. And you're like, oh, not that what they're doing is okay,
Right.
but you are now seeing it from a different perspective. Ford doesn't dwell in all of that, unfortunately, because he had 30 minutes to do so.
Yep.
He could have done something, right? But it just is really fascinating how they're able to think, because they're American, think because they claim God, that evil and plague and illness, pestilence are all they're saved from all of it because they believe in God.
Yep.
And because they're American. It's like, that's just not true. I mean, when she's like, you need to get her away from here. Like, she can't have a baby here. Like, it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we need to talk to another doctor because clearly you're wrong. And it's like she can't leave. Like, even the man, he's like, we can't leave. Who do you care more about? What are you doing this for? Like, you're going to have a baby and your baby's life is at stake. And you're like, well, we'll just, we need to stay here because I need to be a minister. It's like, so selfish. They're all using blind religion for themselves. It's all to make themselves feel better. And yet they go through horrible things. The man dies.
Yep.
He's killed because you don't just get to claim a stake over yourself that no longer danger happens to you. Right?
Right.
There was a famous missionary from years ago in the 1800s, and his name was Adoniram Judson. And he went to this country. I want to say it was Thailand.
Okay.
But he ends up getting horribly sick. Like hives, like Job of the level biblical proportions sick.
Mm-hmm.
But he knew it could happen. In fact, when he asked to marry the woman that he married, he told her father, like, this could happen, just so you know. We might be killed. We might get sick. He was hung upside down in a jail for what he was doing while he had hives and sickness all over his body, but he realized that he wasn't safe from that just because he believed in God.
Right.
He did it even knowing that could happen. Here you have these women who are like, they should be living the high life. We're Americans, we won't be attacked, right? And we're Christians, we can't be taken over. It's like, you look at them, and they're Americans, all right,
mm-hmm.
but none of them claim to be, or none of them look or seem to be through action, believers in a higher power. It stops at the floor for them, and I think that is what Ford does really, really well, especially attacking on a meta level. Filmmaking can address all of these things. Filmmaking is very intriguing. Filmmaking is compelling, and you can believe in filmmaking as much as the next guy, but it doesn't save you just because you believe in it. And John Ford here with these women, he's using this idea of Christianity as this sort of salvation, filmmaking as this salvation, right?
Right. As
this is what I've thought this entire time until it gets to the end. And then he realizes it's never been that. And we need to be more, his argument, I don't agree with it necessarily, but his argument is we need to be more like Dr. Cartwright.
Yeah.
And we need to be willing to give up ourselves to find the answer. To sacrifice our beliefs, our ideals for something else so that we can find the truth. And while I don't believe we need to kill ourselves to find the truth, I do believe that there is this understanding that for John Ford, as he comes to this conclusion, talking about faith, talking about pestilence in the world, talking about the evils of the world, talking about that women are our salvation in a way, right? That's clearly his assumption in this movie. It still is. It's just he ends it. He ends it in a very nice, stated, professional way, but also throws in that crass line of "so long, you bastard." There is that dynamic. There is that duality there that he has. I want to say goodbye, and I want it to look elegant. I want it to look macho. I want it to look incredible, but I also want it to be crass. I want you guys to realize both exist.
Yeah.
We have Christians who are unwelcoming. We have doctors who smoke, right? We have cultural tone deafness, but maybe well-meaning intentions. Everything goes together. And I feel like the duality and that he's able to produce there. And again, his meta level understanding. Christianity, filmmaking, medicine, religion, none of it is what saves you. It's the actions of yourself. And so that's what I believe Ford was really trying to capture here, which is why I still really favor the film, even if it does fumble in the third act.
Yeah, it's a film. There's certainly a lot going on. And there's one other thing that I was kind of curious and I wanted to maybe touch on, even though you and I are certainly not equipped to touch on it, but we can attempt to have the discussion anyways. Is that the relationship between Mrs. Andrews and Emma? Because there was something that I noticed, and then as I started looking at like letterbox reviews of people who'd seen the film, and there weren't very many apparently. Not really.
Like less than 1,000.
Yeah, it's a very small number. Like the most liked review is 160 people, so it's not a popular film at all. But anyways, I'm stepping out of the nerd box. But I saw something that talked about Mrs. Andrews and Emma, and I thought about it too when I saw the film. But that scene that Mrs. Andrews is kind of watching Emma get ready for dinner, and the way that she watches her. It's not creepy, but there's this sense of she feels like she's longing for something. And whether it's a longing for her youth, whether it's a longing for the innocence that Emma possesses, or the beauty and the elegance maybe that Emma possesses, the naivety or the hope that Emma possesses, or maybe if it is a suppressed desire to actually be intimate with Emma. I wanted to just pop that out there and touch on that, because then it came back up when Emma was sick and Mrs. Andrews was so affected. And the way that this film kind of looks at sexual repression of women, I guess maybe is the best way I can announce that. Again, as a guy, it's really hard for me to have much of a thought about it, but I did want to bring that discussion to the table because I think it touches on that, especially with Mrs. Andrews' character, and especially in the way that she seems to have taken Emma under her wing. It feels like, and this could just be my 2026 vision and what I'm so used to being exposed to, but it feels like there's at least a longing that feels deeper than just a mentor-mentee relationship. Whether she's longing to be her, whether she's longing to be with her in some sort of way, not necessarily romantic or sexual or anything of that nature, although it could be, and I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, because I had those thoughts as I watched the film too. I was like, I wonder if there's something there. Maybe that's why she's here at this monastery and poured her life into it. She said she never married, she never had kids, even when the doctor tells her you should have, and she's like, no, I just never did. But she expresses that there's this longing in her heart. That she's been trying to fill, this thing that she's been searching for. And I wondered if maybe Emma became that thing that she was searching for, and kind of what that relationship was like and how you interpreted those couple of scenes, and then the way that it kind of dealt with sexuality and especially female sexuality as a whole in this film. Because you get it with the pregnant mother too, right? When she's having the baby and the baby's being delivered scene and all that, and Mrs. Andrews she completely shuts away from it when all the other women are there helping and comforting and getting the things and caring for the baby and for the mother. Miss Andrews is just completely stone cold. So I wondered, even thinking that, about the dynamic of sexual repression and kind of what you thought about those two things specifically, but then how that as a theme was brought throughout the film. What you kind of thought.
No, I think that's a great topic to touch on. I didn't know we were going to be diving into it, but I'm glad you brought it up, because I think that it's very accurate, because that's also something I think Ford... It's interesting, right? Because Ford was one of those directors that, even we talked about with Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, like he was notoriously really nice to Jimmy Stewart because Jimmy Stewart was in the war, and he was notoriously rude to John Wayne because it's rumored that John Wayne dodged some drafts, right? So there is this understanding that he was really respectful towards the men who were willing to go and fight for the country. But then it also talked about, like, they would have tea breaks at 4:30 every shooting day on the set of Seven, where they would stop and they'd go and they'd sit and they'd talk. And Anne Bancroft even talked about how John Ford was a marvelous but loony man who would rip script pages out, and he would rewrite stuff all the time. The script was also co-wrote by a woman, and based on, the story of Nora Lofts. And there's this whole, like, understanding of Ford as this really aggressive, mean-spirited, sort of just like, I am an auteur first and everything else comes after.
Right.
But on the set of Seven Women, it's said that he was really tolerable. And there was a woman, Jane Chang, who was on, who was Mrs. Ling. And I think, she was one of the women teachers there that was there to help, or like group leaders.
Yeah, she came with the UK mission women.
Yes. Yep. And he spoke to her in Chinese whenever he would direct her. So he was intentional enough to learn Chinese to speak to this woman. And so you see him, like, obviously he's got this soft spot and honestly, truly respectful position towards women. Not just like the nice guy like Bear from Obsession, who's just doing it for all the wrong reasons. He clearly seems to have a true respect and admiration towards them. So with Miss Andrews, I think, as mean-spirited as she is, I think she's also maybe a representation of Ford at times. This sort of, I want to control everything. I want to have control over everything.
Okay.
And I don't know what I believe. I don't know what I am leaning into, right? But she does truly care for Emma. But I think 100% you look at the life Miss Andrews has chosen, and it's hard to think that when she's so upset about a pregnancy between a married couple, it's not even a baby out of wedlock. It's a baby that you would assume she would be okay with because it came from a married couple. But she is so upset by the act itself, I think, because of this thorn in her side, if you will, that she has ill thoughts, impure thoughts towards women. Which I think she looks at Emma because Emma is her idealized woman. She's a beautiful young woman. She's a strong-hearted, strong-willed young woman. She's understanding. I think everything you touched on. I think she not only wants to be her, I do think she does want to be with her.
Okay, good. I'm glad you and I are on the same page, and that just wasn't me reading.
No, I mean, you think about it, whenever she's so affected by how sick she is, she says, I can't pray. I can't pray. I need you to save her. Doctor, please help Emma, right? And when she talks to her later, is Emma going to be okay, right? And she says God isn't enough because she wants something that God prohibits, right? Yeah, 100% that's in there. 100% that's something that Ford intentionally put in there. There's no way it's not. I can't see any world in which that just happened.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there is some element of Ford in Miss Andrews, but I also think it is this idea of that repression that you've talked about, that he wanted to truly and like well-meaning touch on.
Right.
In a way that was, because John Ford, believe it or not, even if you look at his older films, and you might be like, "Oh, it's a bit more racist than I thought," but it's still well-meaning,
right?
He's never intentionally trying to be an awful person.
No.
When you look at these films here, he's wanting to state good. He's wanting to be a true person of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Again, the duality. I think there's also a lot of Ford and Dr. Cartwright.
Yeah.
That this idea of I'm here and we're just going to handle it and this is how we're going to do it. And you know what? I'm the best at what I do and you're going to take it or leave it, or you're going to suck it up and hate it, because it's like, this is just who I am and this is what you get.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think that Ford really is one of the best directors, as far as he wants to touch on who he is as a person, Hollywood culture, but also he wants to talk about feminism and he wants to talk about the male mythicism, right? Like there is this, like, he's known as the myth maker, right? He's a myth maker of Hollywood. And I think at the end of Fablemans, when you have David Lynch play John Ford,
mm-hmm.
and he tells him to look at the horizon. And he says, you either look at the top, the horizon's at the top, or the horizon needs to be at the bottom. If it's in the middle, it's boring. You look at the top, it's interesting. If it's at the bottom, it's interesting. He made his whole career out of that, right?
Yeah.
The horizon, it can never just be this middle kind of gray ground. It needs to be extremely this and extremely that. And we need to have both combined in there. And I think that he's done that with every film that he's ever made. And I think that there are some where he does it a lot better than others.
There are.
But Seven Women, I think, is an attempt on, in his own right, that did it really well. Even if he has some falters in the third. But no, I think that there's no way to think that this isn't a feminist film without talking about female sexuality, and he 100% touches on that.
Yeah.
And that's why she's so angry, because she can't have what she wants, and she's doing everything she thinks she needs to do in the name of the Lord,
right,
in order to be. You might wonder, is she doing all this just so she can be by Emma? It's a very interesting topic. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I wasn't planning on talking about it, but I'm glad that you brought that up. 100%. There is there's something there.
Well, you know me, I love to poke the bear.
Yeah, I completely understand. So,
yeah, and two, I just wanted to add one more thing before we kind of come to a close into our ranking, because it seems like we're headed that way. What I really appreciate about Seven Women, you mentioned several times that it is very much a feminist film. And I think to say that there's a lot of truth to that. But Seven Women is not a feminist film in the sense of what we have come to experience and expect today. Mm-hmm. We're not getting Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. We're not getting Captain Marvel. We're not getting something just so completely in your face and loud and aggressive and masculine, for lack of a better word. Because these women, it's a feminist film. Sure, it's got feminist undertones. Of course it does. But these women are still very feminine. And it's in their femininity that strength comes through for each one of them. And really, you could argue that it's the dictatorship, the authoritarian, it has to be my way that Miss Anderson carries, that you could argue that's more of a masculine trait. And that's one of the things that makes her kind of insufferable and doesn't make her as strong of a leader as somebody like Dr. Cartwright, who you could say looks masculine and acts masculine in the things she does, but she feels as a person very feminine.
Yes.
in the way that she cares and the way that she nurtures and the way that she steps up and she's like, all right, I got to do this. This is the way it's going to happen, because her aggression comes when people are threatened, kind of like that stereotypical thing of we expect, like when a mother's child is threatened, that's when the mother's aggression really shines, versus it just being this constant aggression boiling under the surface like we stereotypically expect in men, and have seen in John Ford's male characters. So I just wanted to add that to that discussion, because I think it is a very strong and very clearly has feminist undertones to this film, but it's in their femininity that they're strong, and it's in the trying to be spiritually masculine, for lack of a better phrase, of Miss Andrews that really makes her weak and ultimately drives all the other women away from her by the end of the film, to where even her most loyal companion, her secretary, says, I don't want to hear another word from you for the rest of my life. I was like, wow, that was intense for me when she said that. I was like, woman has had enough of you that she doesn't even want to hear a word from you again, and he was your most loyal friend. So I just wanted to add that footnote onto that discussion as well, to kind of close that up before we wrapped up our Ford marathon here.
No, I think that's a great point to touch on, and I think that, you know, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, you could probably live in that film for a long time and never run out of things to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Some surface level, some really, really ingrained. I think here in Seven Women, it's not nearly as deep, but I think the themes are very pronounced. So I'm glad we got to take some time to really sit and talk about them, and I feel like we're not the only ones who would ever say these things about them, but I feel like that it is 100% just accurate to... I think it's a perfect closing for Ford's career.
I agree.
I really do. I really do think it's a perfect closing for Ford's career. So,
which makes it a perfect closing to our marathon.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll close off this episode with our ranking of our marathon. I'm so glad to finally knock out a number of Ford films that I could watch, and just, you know, now when I go back to watch it, it won't necessarily be with the same intensity, but there's a number, like How Green Was My Valley, and Wagon Master, and I want to say it's The Quiet Man. Like, there's so many more Ford films that I can't wait to watch, that I can't wait to see how they would have stacked up in this lineup. But I'm really happy with the lineup we have.
I am too.
So we'll go ahead and do our rankings. I'll do my sixth placement. You'll do your sixth placement. We'll kind of go back and forth that way. And then we'll go through our characters, and you'll do your top three. How about we do 5 characters, if you're comfortable with 5?
Okay.
Yeah, I think we initially thought about 3.
Yes.
I think let's do 5, because I wanted to do honorable mentions, but they're really by themselves.
Right.
So
they are.
I might as well just do the top 5 characters.
Yep.
So I think while we go through these, go through our rankings, finalize our lists, I think that this will be helpful. It's a great way to close it off. I'm super excited that we can move on from this Ford marathon. Not that I don't love a good Western, but this has been challenging for me, because I've never been a big Western guy. But Ford has definitely made me feel more comfortable in the Western front. So
and it's been a lot of work and a lot of just intense watching of these films. So I'm definitely looking forward to a couple more of some relaxed and not so critical episodes coming up.
Absolutely. Agreed. So we'll also, did we tell them about our next marathon? We'll share that at the end.
We'll share that at the end. Yep.
We'll share that at the end. So for number 6, for me, it's clear, it's obvious. Mogambo is the worst of the Ford marathon that we've watched. The more it sits with me, the more it ages like sour milk. It is a bad movie. I don't think there's anything other to appreciate other than Ava Gardner and how beautiful it looks. That's my understanding of Mogambo. So that's my number 6 placement.
Yeah, it was always Mogambo.
Yeah,
I mean, from the moment that the film ended, and it was so heartbreaking, because I so wanted Mogambo to be good, and it was so not good.
sometimes those lesser heard of Ford films and movies from directors you really appreciate are for a reason.
Yeah.
And Mogambo, unfortunately, had a pretty good reason.
Yeah, that's one that all of you can pass. If you want to see Ava Gardner's scene, just Google best Ava Gardner moments Mogambo. That's all you need. The rest,
100%
let it go.
100% agreed. All right, so my fifth placement is the one we just finished with, and that is Seven Women. Huge jump from Mogambo to Seven Women. In fact, the remainder of the films, I would say I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah.
And one I loved. Two I loved, really. Three I don't know, man. Like, I really liked a lot of these movies. I would say the rest of these are great films that I will rewatch probably for. I can't wait to show my son. I can't wait to tell other people to watch them. So Seven Women is my fifth placement. But that is not a diss to Seven Women at all. It's just the fact that the other four Ford films we watched are the other four Ford films we watched. So that is my number 5.
Yeah. So I went back and forth on this one a little bit, and I've actually got it written different in my notes. But I think after talking about it and discussing it even more with you, I'm going to agree with you. My number 5 is also going to fall at Seven Women.
Okay. Interesting. All right. We might have a more similar ranking than I thought we would.
We might.
But it depends on this next one. So my next one is probably the most well-known Ford classic. And believe me, it's the most beautiful Ford film there is in this entire filmography. But that is The Searchers. And it is a phenomenal watch. There are some falls and pitfalls and problems, but the highs of The Searchers are immense. The final shot and the first shot are incredible. So that's my 4th placement, is The Searchers.
You know, it's very possible we've got the same list. Because it was between Seven Women and The Searchers that it was going back and forth with me. Ultimately landing on number 4, The Searchers. So, So what's your number 3?
This is where it will differ. This
is where it's going to differ? Okay, awesome.
100%.
I didn't want to have the same list.
We won't have the same list. My number three is one that I was so excited to watch, and that was Stagecoach. And it is a tremendous character study. It's incredible. It's like so well written. It is one of the best movies. If you are studying to write characters, I would say watch either Magnolia by Paul Thomas Anderson or Stagecoach or both, because they are the best character films you can watch about movies about characters. So Stagecoach, excellent Western, excellent character study.
Good. So this is where we differ.
Yep.
As you said we would. But so my number 3 is My Darling Clementine.
Yep.
And to go back and say that, the more I have sat with My Darling Clementine, the more I've really appreciated this film. From The Searchers to the top, and really from Seven Women to the top, these are all good to great to perfect films.
Yep.
But yeah, My Darling Clementine is a very good film. It is one that has aged well as we've gone through this marathon.
So glad.
So it is one that is well worth your time. It is a classic Ford Western for a reason. So it's my number 3.
Absolutely. And I think it's important too, going through these rankings. I don't remember exactly, and of course, as we've sat with it more time, maybe they've differed on our rankings. And so I think it's important to state that Mogambo, whether it reflects in my letterbox or not, it sits at a 2-star ranking. And so that's 1 star for the setting, 1 star for Ava Gardner.
There you go.
After that, For Women is somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4. After that, The Searchers sits comfortably at a 4. Stagecoach comfortably at a 4.5. And so for you, what are your ratings to this point so far, at least what you're thinking? Of course, you said strong 3, possibly
right.
somewhere in the middle for Seven Women, but for the others.
So Mogambo is a very weak 3.
Okay.
In the sense that it could be a 2 by the end of the year, but it's a very weak 3. It's holding on by a thread. Where it's at. And then The Searchers is a more strong 3. It's not a top tier level 3, but it is a strong, firmly set in as a 3-star film. And really, that's because of John Wayne's performance. That it anchors it there as a 3. 7 Women, also a 3. My Darling Clementine, I think, is where we're getting to the strong 3-star rankings for me. So that is one, as I said, my appreciation for it has just grown. More forward that we've watched and the more time that has passed.
That makes sense. Okay. All right. And then the next film on my list sits comfortably at a 4.5. It actually could be a 5 the more I think about it, but that is My Darling Clementine. And I love that movie so much. It is a tremendous Western. It is a great bromance in the best ways possible. And it's a beautiful looking film for black and white photography.
Yeah.
As far as his black and white films go, as much as I love the next one we're about to mention, on my list, are the top of my list, and this film blows it out of the water as far as how good it looks. So I will say that My Darling Clementine is a beautiful film. It's amazing. It is an amazing film.
Yeah. Well, my number 2, I'm sitting at a strong 4, like top tier level 4. Can't wait to rewatch this film again. Can't wait to watch it with my wife because she didn't get to watch it with me the first time around. It's Stagecoach. Stagecoach, from the very beginning, I knew this film was going to be top of my list, if not the top of my list. And I will say this, with Stagecoach, this isn't my highest rated Ford film, but this is my favorite. This is the one that I can't wait to rewatch.
Okay.
This is the one that I find the most enjoyable. I find the most heartwarming and heart-wrenching all at the same time. It's got my favorite characters. Some of my favorite characters have come out of this film. Easily the best dialogue and the most quotable dialogue has come out of this film.
So argue that for sure.
Stagecoach is my number 2 in the ranking. A strong 4-star, but it's my favorite of the Ford films that we watched.
Okay. That, I'm not gonna lie, is a little confusing. If it's your favorite, why is it not your first one? But that's okay. We'll leave that for user determination. But my number 1 is my favorite Ford film. It was in contention with My Darling Clementine, but it's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Yeah.
And that is a 5-star film. It is a perfectly made film. I cannot find any flaws within this film. It is so intriguing. It's so interesting. It is well made. It is a great meditation on Ford's career. It is a great meditation on the duality of man. It is a great meditation on guns versus words. It is everything and more, and so many things that we didn't even get to discuss. And so it also has Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne, 2 of Hollywood's greatest actors as far as their status goes. And I think that is something that wasn't recreated again until Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Wow, that's quite a jump of years there.
Yep.
But yeah, well, I have no notes. I mean, if you're following around, again, our lists are back to the same again. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is my number 1. It is a 5-star. As much as I tried to make it a 4, I couldn't. I couldn't put it below Stagecoach because as I looked at it, like you, I found no fault. The fault I can give it is it's maybe not as rewatchable as Stagecoach. And I don't even know if that's necessarily true. That comes strictly down, I think, to a matter of personal opinion. But yeah, what you said with Liberty Valance, no notes. It is a perfect Ford film. It is one that I will be rewatching, that I will be showing and recommending to others. It is mind-boggling to me that this is not the Ford film that people think of, that it was as underseen as it was when it first came out. Because this is, to me, Ford is firing on all cylinders. His actors are firing on all cylinders. Every one of them. It's absolute perfection.
Yep, absolutely. So, okay. All right, great ranking. Mainly because it's very similar to mine. But yeah, great ranking. All right, and then here quickly as we finish off our top 5 characters. So why don't you go ahead and do your top 5, and then I'll do my top 5.
So my number 5, because I fear it would be heresy to say any other, is Ethan Edwards.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of John Wayne's best performances. He thinks it's his best performance. The Searchers hinges on John Wayne as Ethan Edwards. So for all those reasons alone, he has to be in my top 5.
Okay. So my number 5 is Dr. Cartwright from Seven Women. I think she is a tremendous performance. I think she makes Seven Women work as well as it does. And I think Anne Bancroft is just so compelling from start to finish. When she first arrives, it's sort of like Ringo the Kid from Stagecoach. There is this dramatic entrance for her character, and it's felt and it permeates. And she is just 100% a top-notch character.
Yeah, she is definitely one that deserves mentioning. I'm so glad you did. So my number 4, which I kind of hate to do this, but I'm going to. I hate to put 2 John Wayne characters in there.
Oh yeah.
But it's Tom from Liberty.
Tom Donovan. Yep.
It's Tom Donovan.
Okay.
And I don't need to justify Tom Donovan to anybody. It's Tom Donovan.
You're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. You don't need to justify him. In fact, you don't need to justify him so much that he hit the same ranking on my list, and that is Donovan from The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. He's a big reason why that film works as well as it does, and his character is so heartbreaking, and it is literally the story of a legend, because from the perspective of the true time of the story, he's dead. And he is just he's so powerful as a character. And as a theme and as a message, Tom Donovan is a great number.
Yeah. He's my favorite John Wayne performance of the 3 that we got to see in this marathon.
100%. Okay. That's a great pool.
So my number 3, also I really hate doing, because it's also from The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. It's Hallie Stoddard.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, she made my top 3, and I think Ford throughout this marathon, his strength he's had so much strength in his female characters, and Hallie to me is one of the best.
Okay, very very interesting. Yeah, Hallie is definitely not my number 3, but I think that's a completely fair placement for her. My number 3 might be surprising. You might be wondering, how did they make it this high? But you might not also be wondering that, because it's not Ava Gardner from Mogambo. I almost got it. It's Wyatt Earp from My Darling Clementine. Henry Fonda as Wyatt Earp is truly one of the best true principled Western characters in all of Western cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And he is compelling from front to end, a great straight man, and pairs well with Doc Holliday, to where he plays a maybe not as straight a man, if you catch my drift. So,
it is what it is. Well, my number 2, my top 2, there was no question who these were going to be. My number 2 is Ransom Stoddard.
Okay.
So if you're keeping up track, that's 3 characters from Liberty Valance at this point. What can you do? It's the top of my film ranking list, and it's Jimmy Stewart giving a amazing performance as Ransom. So Ransom Stoddard is my number 2.
This is uncanny, because he is also my number 2. And that we have 2 of the same placements from The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I mean, it is, like we said, a perfect film. And it makes sense, because Ransom Stoddard is the perfect other side of the coin to Tom Donovan. And he is just tremendous. Jimmy Stewart's one of the best actors to ever grace our television screens, our cinema screens. and will forever be a name that everyone remembers. If not for the man who shot Liberty Balance, It's a Wonderful Life, Vertigo, Rear Window, and so many more. So Jimmy Stewart is the GOAT, as far as I'm concerned.
He is. He is a GOAT. Exactly. For sure.
He is one of the greatest of all time. And he's a great number 2 placement.
Yeah. Well, my number 1, Brady, I'm sure this comes as no surprise to you. It was always this character from the moment we watched the film. It's Dallas from Stagecoach.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it was always Dallas. From the opening of that film all the way to the end here with 7 women. Yeah, it was always Dallas.
Dallas. Okay. I actually am a little bit surprised. I'm not saying I'm surprised because she's not a terrific character. I'm just saying I'm surprised because I feel like with the other characters that are here, I just don't know how she topped your list. I thought she would be in it, but I did not think she would top it. So, and then I thought maybe you took out Hallie and, or, you took out Dallas and replaced her with Hallie, but no, you kept Dallas at number 1. Okay.
I did.
All right. Any guesses as to my number 1?
I want to say Doc Holliday.
That's a great guess, but it's not Doc Holliday.
It's not Doc Holliday.
It's another one you named, but it was your number 5.
It's my number 1.
It's Ethan Edwards. He is the greatest Western character maybe ever. He is one of the only reasons The Searchers works as well as it does. He has the most quotable Western line, and that'll be the day. And he is truly the change in his character and the beauty of that final shot of him walking away in that cowboy hat is something truly nothing short of a miracle. Mm-hmm. So that is my favorite character in all the John Ford films we've watched. He hasn't left my mind. I think about him all the time, and he is just truly an astonishing character. And even though John Ford gave him such a hard time, you can tell why he did, because he got Ethan Edwards out of the deal. So that is my top 5. Thank you for sharing your top 5. And as our episode comes to a close, we just want to thank you guys for joining us on this marathon as our Stagecoach has finally reached its destination. And so we hope that you guys continue to watch Ford films, as he is one of the great Hollywood directors, as we think he's also pretty great ourselves. I think he has a handful of masterpieces. But we always recommend you guys listening to other podcasts such as Film Spotting with Josh and Adam, The Next Picture Show, their sister podcast. I always encourage film essayists such as Thomas Flight or like Stories of Old, The House of Tabula. They're all great for interesting, compelling information on films from days of old to very modern cinema. We also want to encourage you guys to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, as we are releasing less pretentious content and more Film Bro content. Easy, fun rankings, and we encourage you to engage with us, have conversations with us. It's truly a great time, and you get to see more of like how we feel about films outside of our marathons, outside of our discussions. And as a teaser, our next conversation, our next marathon, I should say,
which will be next year. Probably in the springtime, I think, is what we talked about, or in the fall, one of those two.
It will be a very, very pretentious conversation coming from your pretentious film bros. From our perspective, not necessarily because the films are pretentious, but from our perspective, it's going to be a dual director, still 6 films, but from a married couple that really, truly shocked the French New Wave, and that is Agnes Varda and Jacques Demy, as we'll be going through 6 of their films total, 3 Demy, 3 Varda, and we'll be discussing how they maybe correlate with each other, how they have dialogue with one another, as one of the Washington brothers had said whenever they had gone into the Criterion Closet, they talked about their dialogue with one another. But that's going to be our next marathon. We can't wait for you guys to join us. And for our next episode, just tune in, because we're just going to be talking about some films we've been watching, things we've been enjoying, and just maybe some television, some just other art things that we've been really engaging with over the last couple months as we sort of take a debrief from our Ford marathon. So until next time, we do ask that you tune in, even if you have no idea what we're talking about.
Now, so long, you bastards.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
I'm finished.